David, could you start by just telling me a little bit about your risk management experience?
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. I am the risk doctor. There's only one risk doctor. But I got to be the risk doctor really by chance, initially working in a major defence contractor, and was told to do risk management by the MOD in the, I guess it would be the early 80s. And discovered I had a little bit of a knack for it, and so that got to be quite interesting and helpful. I started helping some of my colleagues to manage risk in their projects, and then realised there's a whole big wide world out there who needs help. So the Risk Doctor brand has been going for about 10 years. We've worked in over 40 countries, every continent except the Antarctic. It's a bit too cold for us. Pretty much every industry sector, and all sorts of different kinds of risks. So not just project and program, but also strategic, corporate, environmental, reputation, health and safety, counter-terrorism, fraud. So we cover the whole risk picture, the whole globe, and it's a very fascinating thing to be doing.
Everyone knows risk is bad, David, but what's all this about good risk or positive risk, upside risk?
Is there such a thing as a good risk? Well, if you ask the man in the street, would you like to have a risk happen to you? I'm sure he'll say no. But if we go back to the origins of the idea of risk, I like to describe risk with three simple words. Risk is uncertainty that matters. There are lots of uncertainties in the world that don't matter. All risks are uncertain, but not all uncertainties are risks. So if we take the idea of uncertainty that matters, clearly anything that might happen or might not, but if it did, would hurt us and slow us down and damage value and cost more money, that's an uncertainty that matters and we need to manage it. But there are other uncertainties that matter. There are things in the future that could happen. They might not happen. If they did happen, they'd be helpful. So they would help us to save money, save time, increase our value and benefits, enhance our reputation. And rather than just relying on good luck, we could actually look for those things and manage them proactively. So the kind of byline, the tag of uncertainty that matters, includes the bad things, but also the good things. What's also interesting is that if you go back to the origins of the word, risicare, an old Italian word, it does actually have in there the concept of both upside and downside. That's also reflected in the Chinese word weiji, which means risk. And weiji has two parts. Wei means crisis or danger, and ji means opportunity. And crisis plus opportunity in Chinese is risk. It's the yin-yang double-sided concept. So we've always had that double-sided idea of bad things and good things could happen, and we need to manage both of them. The modern understanding of risk includes them both. So threats plus opportunities are both flavours or types of risk.
So in managing opportunities, should we manage them differently from threats?
Well, if you take the idea that they're both the same thing, they're both uncertainties that matter, then an opportunity is the same as a threat. The only difference is the sign of the impact, positive or negative. Now, if they're both the same kind of thing, then we ought to be able to manage them using the same kind of process. So we'd say, for risk identification, we can identify threats, things that might go wrong. We could also identify opportunities, things that might go well and help us. Not all those opportunities will be equally good, so we need to prioritize them. Some will be stupid ideas, some will be golden opportunities, so we need some assessment and prioritization step. And we could do that using probability, how likely is the opportunity to happen, and impact, how helpful would it be, just the same as threats. Once we've prioritized them, then we need to develop responses. So we don't just hope we get lucky, we try and make the opportunity happen or make it better. So like avoiding threats or minimizing threats, we can exploit opportunities and maximize opportunities. It's the same. And once we've got some good actions, then we implement those actions and review in just the same way. So the risk process, identify, assess, plan and manage, we can do that for opportunities. Find the opportunities, pick out the good ones, decide what to do and do it. And it's exactly the same as threats. So I'd say manage them together in an integrated, cohesive, single risk management process. And then you have one process which serves two purposes, minimizing threats and maximizing opportunities. We're using the same resources, the same process, and it's obviously much more efficient.
Why should we bother to focus on opportunities? Surely we should just worry about the threats.
Yes, there is a natural tendency to want to manage threats first. And I think there are very good psychological reasons for that. And Maslow, for example, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, suggests that the lowest level of need is about survival. And in project and program terms, it's threats which are threatening the survival of our project and program. So we focus on the lowest level of the hierarchy first before we get to what Maslow calls the growth needs, which represent opportunities. So there is a psychological reason for looking for threats before opportunities. But I think we're really missing a trick if we only focus on the downside. Because if you have a plan and you identify the threats that would take you away from the plan, and then you try and manage your way back to plan, if you can't manage all the threats, there'll still be a performance shortfall. Whereas if in addition you manage opportunities to exceed the plan, to save time and save money, and you capture some of those, then those captured opportunities can plug the gap for the threats that we couldn't manage to manage. So there's a kind of trade-off, swings and roundabouts between threats and opportunities. But there's a whole range of other things. It's extremely motivating for a project team to go actively looking for ways to work faster, smarter, cheaper. It's actually good news to the boss. I found a list of things that could go wrong, and here's some things we're going to do about it. But I've also found a list of things that could create additional value and save time and money with some actions to go with it. My risk register has threats and opportunities. So it's a very good news story in terms of making sure we create maximum value.
Is anyone actually doing this, or is this just theory? I mean, perhaps you could give me an example.
Yes, there is a criticism that maybe this is just some kind of theoretical, desire for being equal and equitable and treat things in some sort of balanced way. But major organisations are doing this. For one thing, it's mentioned in the ISO risk standard. ISO 31000 says very clearly that risk is the effect of uncertainty on objectives. Footnote, effect can be positive or negative. So anybody who wants to comply with the ISO standard, of course, is going to be doing this. But major commercial organisations are doing it because it works, because it helps them to create additional value, additional benefits, to focus on the upside and to make more of their projects than they would if they didn't. So they're only doing it because it actively adds to the bottom line. There's quite a nice example. I was involved with the NASA project, the Constellation project, which is to take somebody to Mars and hopefully bring them back again. And one small part of that project is to build a base station on the moon, so that we start on the moon and then we can build the rest of our rockets to go to Mars starting from the moon. And NASA was stuck in terms of how to actually build this base station. How could we go about thinking about a base station on the moon? And I ran for NASA an opportunity workshop to try and unlock their creative thinking, to help them to be more innovative in spotting ways in which we could do this technically very challenging and obviously high cost, high risk part of the program. And through the use of opportunity management, we identified 8 specific things that they hadn't thought of before that might not happen, but if they did, would really help them achieve this goal. And along with those things, actions we could implement in order to make those good things happen, or at least make them more likely. And the NASA team felt within maybe 1 hour, the opportunity focus had really helped them to unlock their thinking and find a different approach. Now, the only problem with that is that about 9 months ago, Barack Obama cancelled the moon base as part of the Constellation program. And we're all very cross about that, because now my great example is not going to actually be built. But in practice, it was a good way of using the opportunity thinking in a very challenging project environment to help them to find better solutions.
So what would be your top tips then for managing these opportunities?
Okay, well, you could, of course, just hope that you'll get lucky. But what's much better, much more professional, is to try and make your own luck. And we can use the risk process not only to manage downside risk, and of course we must do that, but also to manage upside risk, so that we go actively looking for ways to work faster, smarter, cheaper, to save time, save money, create value. Every project manager is going to want to do that. So I would say take the approach that you currently use for managing threat-based risks, the downside risks, and just extend it, expand it to think about upside risks as well. Remember that an opportunity is the same as a threat. The only difference is the sign of the impact. So everything we can do for threats, we can do for opportunities, and that makes it really easy. You know how to do this. All you have to do is do what you're currently doing for bad risks and do that for good risks. It's easy. Why wouldn't you?
And is there further information available if you want to read more about this approach?
Well, what's interesting is there isn't a lot in terms of textbooks on opportunity management. I wrote a book on this called Effective Opportunity Management for Projects in 2004, and that still remains the only major textbook on the subject. Most standards now include it, so the APM PRAM guide, for example, or the PMI practice standard in project risk management, both include the idea of managing upside risk alongside downside. But there's no real textbook apart from my old 2004 book, which fortunately is still available.